Hey everybody, how you doing? Well, it's been really great here working, and first thing we're doing is fixing the anchor lid itself. Is just totally mush. And we're working on the water tanks and cutting ports to be able to clean and inspect the water tanks, and we're taking care of all kinds of stuff. So stay tuned for lots of boat improvement stuff.
Grabbing speed.
Well, today I'm going to go take a look at this anchor locker lid. You know, it's so weak, you can't even stand on it. I mean, it just would crack right through. And so you can imagine how hard it's been to try to deploy the anchor and retrieve the anchor when you can't even stand on that whole lid, that triangle part. So I'm going to take it off and we're going to take a look at it and see why is it so weak? Why can't anyone stand on it? First step in the job is to take it off. Yeah, it looks really bad. Once I get it off, I'm going to take it up to the workshop and I'll have Jeff take a look at it and see how we can fix this and what's the problem with it. Hey everybody, good morning. Well, I'm here at my friend Jeff's garage workshop, and he's giving me instructions and showing me how to use some of these tools. So I'm going to go ahead now and do some work myself here alone.
So on this, we're going to be cutting the coring out of here. This is what's bad.
Oh yeah, look at that. That's all.
Right. Well, that's part of where it failed. That's what that rubber was, because this was all chewed out. And you see the water running out of it? So this core is completely saturated. So the first thing you're going to do is take these guys off of here.
Okay.
All these bolts and nuts, and you're going to get a baggie and stick all the parts in there.
Okay.
I mean, look, that's just running out of that. Okay. And we will, where's my marker? But now we know why it feels like sponge, because oddly enough it is sponge. And there is going to be the fine tool. And I'll leave this out for you. And it's a fine, fine tool it is. F-Y-N-E. You're going to be, you know, fine cutting in.
Right.
Now the key is you don't want to go so far in there that you hit the other skin.
Okay.
So you'll feel when you're in mush, if you feel like you're hitting something, you're bottoming out, you're too deep, stop, because we don't want to cut through that skin.
Okay.
And you're just, but you want it in there deep enough. It actually cuts more efficiently when you're cutting against this part of it than when you're cutting against that part of it. So you want to get it in there, cutting along. And this is a pretty straightforward tool. It's just an on-off switch. I got you at high speed.
Okay.
And it's going to take you about, if you do it right, about 10 or 15 minutes to cut that out. However, what's under there is going to be real mush. Already?
Yeah.
I feel like Geraldo Rivera. What's in here?
Oh.
Wow. Well, it's not Al Capone.
Looks like a beehive.
Well, so this
is
not
honey.
So people toss around the term coring a lot, and not everybody has ever seen what the core looks like. When a core is in good shape, it's white like this. It's balsa, and it's sealed at one end where it's touching the inside of the water tank, and sealed on the other end where it's up against the gel coat at the top of the tank. And because of the way the resin works, you can see it soaks up into the fibers of the balsa, and that it seals the ends of the balsa. Balsa typically can't rot unless water can move this way through the end grain of the balsa. That's what they talk about, end grain balsa. Now this is that wet balsa that we saw before, and you can see that water is soaked all the way up into the sides of the balsa. And this is what balsa shouldn't look like. Now, this balsa is not actually rotten, it's just wet. But leave it wet for a while, and it gets rotten, and we saw what the rotten balsa looked like. Because we pulled a bunch of it out. It looks like that.
And is this what most sailboats are, the decks are made out of?
This is state of the art for sailboat even today.
Okay.
Balsa has tremendous resistance to shear. In other words, the inside here wants to move one way, the outside wants to move the other. This balsa is really good at transferring between the two. It acts like the web of a steel beam, or an I-beam, as I think most people would call it. So it's really good at that, and it's really light for the amount of shear resistance it has. However, if it gets wet, it has problems. There's no core that doesn't have problems. Foam has a problem with freeze and thaw, and some early foams had a problem with heat. And of course, science has gotten much better on the foam, and at this point they can almost match the core properties of balsa. Everybody thinks balsa is a cheap way to build a deck. It's actually the expensive way to build a deck. Foam is typically less expensive, or at least it was at the time your boat was built. So here's what we're saying. See how there's little pieces of these little squares of balsa wood, and they put down thick of the polyester, and they push that down, and then it soaks up in here, and that's what's supposed to make the connections. Now this is actually not.
Is that what's in the deck too? Is that what they called?
Yes, core. That is balsa coring. That's what bad balsa coring looks like.
Okay.
So yeah. So you know what? When I talked to you about having to use a chisel and tap it out of here,
it's so bad you don't need it, or
I don't know.
It's so it's like mush.
Yeah, it's like it wasn't properly bonded to begin with, and then it got worse. It started out weak and went downhill from there.
Man.
But again, we're very much indebted to.
Oh, well, look at this! Like that's even worse here. It's like actually wet.
This is where the hole was. We're gonna run fiberglass down to the edge of that hole so that the hardware never touches the core again. But any respectable boat builder would have done that. You wouldn't have this hole that's just going water straight into the core.
Right.
And then also, look what the underside of the deck is. Look how thin that is. But it's all non-directional cloth. Well, non-directional cloth has very little strength.
Right.
So this was done about as cheaply and
yeah, that really is.
As it could be.
Yeah, really is. Chintzy.
Yeah, you could sort of play the saw on it.
It's not a Yiddish word, is it? Chintzy?
No. Chintz is a type of fabric.
Oh, okay. That's very good. Interesting. Entomology here.
But look at that. Look how the water just.
Yeah. Oh my gosh!
Just squeegees out of there.
It didn't even rain today. It's still soaking.
So you asked me whether to bother removing it, whether it's wet or not. Well. Yeah. So this is the bottom of the anchor locker lid, and you can see the pattern that's left from the coring. There's a fabric scrim on the coring which we saw last week, and now this is the imprint of that fabric. So you're going to use the palm sander with the really heavy sandpaper on it, and you're going to take it, and when you're all done, it's going to look like that, and you're going to start seeing bits of fiberglass. And we need to get down to that level of sanding before we can do the fiberglass work we have to do here.
Good.
The split here runs through here. It's under here, but it's also running across there. So we're going to have to figure out how we repair that as part of our work. Well, we're going to grind through. I'll do it. So I'll grind through here so that we can lay in fabric and redo that piece of it. So tomorrow you got all that to do, and then you just want to hit this edge with the grinder. Just run your way around and taper it down to a thinner edge. It's already really thin, but
gotcha. All right.
And so you'll do all that.